I've split this guide into many parts, but in each part it's ordered from easy to advanced, shown by green, yellow, and red circles in the top right. Let's start with our normals. A.B.A.'s 2P and 5P are fairly standard defensive pokes. Her 2P is much more useful since it doesn't whiff on crouchers and is a 4-framer, making it better for defensive uses. 5K and 2K are good pokes, with 2K reaching just a little further, but 5K does have a bit of low crush potential. Since they're both 6 frames, 2K is generally more useful, and they're especially good since they're active for 5 frames. Adding in the dash macro right before pressing it is nice for extending the range a little bit. Just be careful about defaulting into 2D as a cancel since it won't reach a max range. Instead, it's better to go into 236S and confirm the hit into a follow-up of 6S for a knockdown. Far Slash is an advancing poke with low recovery, making it decent in the mid-range. It doesn't have a ton of range, but adding dash momentum can help. Since it's advancing, it easily gatlings into the H follow-ups of 5H and 2H, but you can just default into 236S if you prefer. 2S is fairly unique in that it's an anti-air. It being 7 frames makes it a faster anti-air than her 6P, and with much more vertical range. It also has better reward on hit, so when possible, try to use this to anti-air. Her 6P is fairly standard and will still be useful in some situations. It'll just take experience to get used to when to use each anti-air. 5H is an important normal since it's her farthest reaching option. At 15 frame startup, it's fairly slow, but covers a large range. There's a good amount of disjoint, which makes contesting it near max range pretty hard, and even if they punish it, it's hard to follow up on. Its biggest weakness is them using air options to get around and punish it. But if it's blocked, there's a lot of pushback, so even at -15 with no cancels, it's hard or impossible to punish. At farther ranges, 236S will whiff, but is still the go-to cancel when in range, so try to stay aware. A 236K as another cancel option is nice since it goes further, but is worse on hit. Depending on the spacing it hits, you could end up between -2 and +2. The pushback can also be useful for canceling right into install, leaving you only -11 and far away. The reward for counter hitting is great, so overall this will be one of the more important tools in neutral. 2H is mostly used for pressure and combos, and 6H is exclusively used for combos. JP is your best air-to-air option, which can combo into key grab, but it does rely on being close, so try to confirm it quickly. JK isn't very useful. JS, while being short range, does hit both sides, making it useful for cross-ups. Since it's short ranged, it isn't good for air-to-airs. Doing it from IEDs can be good, but unless you delay it, you'll be negative. IED FD can help with this. JH is very slow with no disjoint and angles upwards. It's not very good, but I do find myself using it more than I thought I would simply because it's her only option to hit them from far away in the air. JD instantly makes her halt air momentum and fall to the ground. It's good for baiting anti-airs and can even crush slow 6Ps. Mixing it in with IED JS can be decent, but overall it can be a nice way to stay unpredictable. And it being up to +5 on block while easily comboing on hit is a nice bonus. 236K is an advancing mid that crushes lows. It can crush some mids, but requires specific timing. It's -2 by default, but if you hit it on the later frames, it can be up to +2. Not that you can make much use of the plus frames when you're spaced out like this though. Overall, it's a nice tool that can bridge the gap between moves like Far Slash and 5H in terms of range and speed. And pairing it with RC can make it a good neutral skill. Doing 236K into a fast RC lets you JK into key grab and land cancel for lots of plus frames. Or fast RC with JH to fast fall in 2K, or even JP to set up a tick throw. 214K is a command dash with low profile built in. It's a useful tool for getting around major mid pokes and fireballs. 236S is a Rekka. There's a very large cancel window which goes into a low follow-up by doing 6S after hit or block. Having the large cancel window is nice to force respect, and same goes for the low. There's no disjoint on it, so it's nothing crazy for neutral, but it does have decently good range, slightly beating out Far Slash. It's mostly used to convert her normals into pressure or knockdowns. It being -5 on block makes it a fairly good pressure ender, especially with the pushback, and the follow-up Rekka hit is -15. The pushback can make it hard to punish, but how hard you get punished heavily depends on the matchup. Keep in mind it is whiff cancelable, so the threat is always there even if you miss the first hit. 214S is her parry. It has guard point from frames 7 to 22, so it's not always the easiest to use on reaction, but it does build 25% jealousy rage meter if it's successful. This is the main tool that keeps her viable against projectile zoners since it lets you build resources while playing defensive. The main flaw is that even on a successful parry, she has a lot of recovery, which may force you to block follow-up pressure. The frame data counter doesn't track it properly, but you can see just how much recovery there is, especially if you parry a quick button like a 2K. So depending on the matchup, it may be better to force your way in with 214K going under their main neutral options. If you're trying to react to faster options, stick with 214K since it's frame 3 low profile compared to frame 7 parry. If you parry a quick normal, they may default into a follow-up that leaves them vulnerable to throw or even a mash. Parry PRC is a pretty useful defensive option, but is expensive with vulnerable startups, so be careful with this. It can turn difficult to deal with offense around quickly, so I suggest at least messing around with it. Since her back to corner defense against space pressure is fairly weak, it's good against greedy opponents. Just remember it's vulnerable to throw, and if it's baited, it'll be really bad. But it can help even in situations like Ram Sword Toss. Her key super can be used as a reaction punish from anywhere on screen, but becomes much better in Jealousy Rage. Her H super will give you Jealousy Rage, aka JR meter, and transition you into install. In normal mode, she's tied for the slowest walk speed, back walk speed, and the slowest initial dash speed in the game. Her backdash is also the same speed as Potemkin's, but has the 6 frames of invul, which is nice. Her jump arc and air dash are nothing crazy either, so basically she has some of the worst movement in the game. This makes it so when you burst, you're putting yourself full screen with the worst movement, so choose when to burst carefully. Jealousy Rage can be entered with half circle back punch. Once you enter JR, the meter drains at 10% per second. If you manually uninstall, you gain back half the meter you lost during that rage. In this mode, she is tied for the fastest walk speed in the game and ties Chip for top 3 initial dash speed, and her jump arc is better with a faster fall speed. When the JR meter runs out, the screen freezes and you get 1 frame of invul followed by 10 frames of throw invul, and you can only block during this time. If you run out of meter during a combo, when you recover the freeze will happen, and even if you mash while blocking, you'll only get block. This can lead to lucky situations if they don't realize that you'll have throw invul and tried to do it during pressure or Oki. All normals that use the key got adjusted, and all moves got a slight damage buff. Far Slash is down to 9 frames, is more disjointed, and reaches further. 2S jumps from 7 frame to 9 frame startup, but it has much more reach. It becomes a giant wall against air approaches. 5H drops from 15 frames down to 11 and drops a whole 15 frames of recovery off, making it a much safer poke with still good range, but it does sacrifice a good amount. The speed up, increased disjoint, and reduced recovery down to -5 on block makes this an almost complete upgrade, but you may miss the extra range a bit. This speed up does make it a true string option by default, unlike normal mode. And it pairs very well with Far Slash to lead to easy knockdowns. But Far Slash right into 236S still works nicely. 2D got a complete rework in that it becomes a double hitting low. It's still exclusively useful for pressure and Oki. 2D becomes much larger and disjointed at the cost of being a couple frames slower. And while 6P does use the key, it doesn't change outside of the damage buff. JS loses its easy cross-up potential, but is much better for air-to-airs having a slight forward disjoint. IED JS is +3, and Dash Jump JS is a nice neutral option. Doing this opens up one of her best mix-ups with a fuzzy. And if you land it high up, using a double jump to mix up your timing can be good. JH becomes the better cross-up option. It has a ridiculous amount of range for an air normal and ground bounces. This is one of my favorite air normals in the game since it's so good in so many situations. JD now doesn't halt your air momentum. It's almost primarily used for pressure and combos since it wall bounces. It does have a nice disjoint, but the launch makes it hard or impossible to combo unless you're near the corner. Her specials got changed as well. 214K goes much further, which makes it better for approaching against mids and zoning. 236K now ground bounces, making it a useful combo starter. It stays -2 on block, which is nice to have, just be careful doing it too close using dash momentum since it's throw punishable. Even point blank in the cornered spaces unless you dash. It also becomes an overhead. Comparing the mid and low crush against the regular mode, you can see she goes on top of the key, pulling her hurt box much higher. This makes it way better at avoiding mids and lows. Same as regular 236K, doing fast RCJK gives an overhead, which is extra nice since 236K is an overhead too in JR. 236S gets a very nice range buff and drops from -5 to -2 on block, making it a very strong cancel option on hit and block. The follow-up pops up nicely, letting you OTG for some strong Oki options, but stays at -15 on block, so it's still important to hit confirm. Since 236S is a Rekka, you can Kara cancel into Super by doing 236S, then half circle back into forward S, then immediately H. The same goes for Key Super by doing S immediately into K. This will be useful for when you're near the wall in regular mode to wall break and go into JR. This can be done on block 2, letting you set up lots of plus frames if they block to 2H or other normal. This lets you easily run up for a quick high-low with some visual noise. Since the parry's main function was to build JR meter, in JR mode you can't use it. Instead, you gain the JR exclusive special of Danzai, or DPH. It's a very long total duration move reaching 70 frames, but has guard point from frames 9 to 45. It also has 2 gigantic hitboxes that can lead to big combos on counter hit or if they're airborne. On ground hit, all you get is an OTG. but the guard point makes it useful against reversals on wake up and as a way to run up and bait counterpokes. It being +4 also helps, but being spaced makes it hard to take advantage of. Since it has long duration, it can be whiff punished, but it's not as easy since you need to stay far away for it to whiff. Running up into Danzai is also great since it has an amazing anti-air hitbox. Her supers got drastically buffed in JR mode. Her H super has a bit of a double-edged change. On the plus side, it eats up the rest of your JR gauge to do more damage. It does bonus damage based on you having over 20, 50, or 75% gauge, so when using the super, try to optimize around having as much JR meter as possible once the scaling kicks in. The downside is that if it doesn't kill, you'll be back at 0 JR gauge, which can make neutral and pressure after it pretty rough. The key super jumps up from +6 to +49 on block, making it a strong option to use in neutral. The problem with doing key super in neutral is that they can react to the super flash with up back. Since air blocking guard crush attacks is much better, it drastically drops how plus you are, letting them jump and use air actions to get away before you can get in. If they have an air DP, it is possible for them to avoid it completely, but it's pretty specific, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And since it comes out, even if you trade, you recover much faster and can get a high damage combo. A.B.A doesn't have the best, but far from the worst round start options. Farslash is your 10 frame option, but it doesn't reach unless they also press. 2-on-4K can be good to avoid mid pokes and advance against retreating options, but you'll still be negative and vulnerable to low options. 236K works well as the opposite option, crushing lows, but it is more likely to lose to mids. 2-on-4S can be a decent option if you think they'll be aggressive to build a little JR meter. 5K and 2K are solid options to counterpoke their slightly slower options that would reach round start, and 6P is pretty nice for catching mids. 236S being 12 frames is a little more risky, but it reaches round start, and going into the follow-up will catch people walking back with the low. If they're defensive, you can either backdash into install, or just install immediately. Finally, Super Jump IED-JS can be a way to approach while going around their options. For normal mode neutral, since her movement is very lacking, you'll need to be patient and rely on dash blocking in a lot. Dash 2K and 5K will be your go-to close range pokes, Dash Farslash or 236S will be the mid-range pokes, and 5H will be your long-range poke. Since she's very slow, it lets your opponent generally control the pace of the game, and they'll tend to try to stay outside of your range as much as possible. This leads to 5H being one of the most used buttons since it lets you fight back from far away. Even though there's not much direct reward from a max range 5H, even hitting or making them block it will build you JR meter, which is very important. You can bully your way in by doing 5H into Wild Assault. Even if you're spaced out, it sets up for her strong stagger pressure, so it's still worth it. But if you build enough JR meter from making them block or getting straight hits, doing 5H into install is a nice option. Since 5H's main weakness is jumping, be sure to be patient sometimes and wait for them to try to jump at you and then anti-air with 2S. IED-JS can be a nice tool, but don't use it too often since the range is pretty limited and it's not a very fast option. 236K is one of her stronger options in the mid-range, especially if you have RC to back it up for pressure and combos. And remember when fighting zoners, parry is a nice way to build JR meter, but be careful about doing it against very plus projectiles since you may immediately lose neutral. Start working on your decision making for when to parry and when to command dash under projectiles. Something important to get used to is buffering 236S after your pokes like 2K and Farslash so that it'll come out when they connect. Here you can see I input 5K and 236S and it only comes out on hit or block, then just be ready to react and follow up with Rekka for a knockdown. 5H into Wild Assault can set up JD, which can whiff for a nice visual trick, or simply set up more plus frames. 236K into Fast RC is more meter efficient, so try to do it when you go for this option. When it comes to projectiles like Drone, you can't 236K over it, and 214King under it requires specific timing, but it is possible. In JR mode, 236King over it becomes much easier. When fighting slow projectiles like this, 5Hing will force them to block or get hit and make the projectile go away, so make sure to use the disjoint well. And if they block, you can still parry or 214K. Even against characters like Testament, she can mix and match between jumping, parrying, 214K, 236K, and IEDs to get around projectiles. This is where I think IED-JH is the most viable. It's not easy and requires a grasp of their habits, but she does have all the tools she needs to deal with projectile zoners. It'll take experience to get a feel for when to jump or 214K compared to parrying, since parrying may leave you in too much recovery forcing you to block something else. It's not easy by any means, but it is doable, and even getting JR meter to go into install is enough to make it worth trying. While A.B.A has tools to fight projectile zoners, she struggles against zoners who use normals and quick specials. Her best option to fight at the ranges they like to play is 5H, which at 15 frames makes it risky to just throw out. Dash blocking is generally best to force them to be minus as you get closer, but they can take advantage of this or use moves that force you back. But if they start committing to negative moves, you can start to fight back. For example, Misfiner is minus 15, which lets 5H punish it and combo 236k. After negative attacks, you can also throw in 236k or 214k to high crush and low crush, trying to bully your way in. For longer horizontal moves, air approaches are typically counters, so you can try IEDs too. When in JR, your mobility is top tier, so while you are on a time limit, you don't always have to run headfirst in since your whiff punish game is so strong. The changes to Far Slash and 5H make them incredibly strong pokes and always combo into 236S. But if you don't feel like playing neutral, run up Danzai is very strong. Just remember that it is frame 9 guard point, so it can be stuffed. Dashing 236S has a ton of range, so it can be a good jump scare option that sets up nice mix-up options for Oki. And this gets much better with RC, giving a mix-up or full combo. Even if you don't have meter, it's only -2, so when looking for a hit confirm, seeing them block lets you react with a backdash or go into stagger pressure. Same goes for when you're buffering 236S after Far Slash or 5H. Use your movement to mix up going all in or stopping short to try to make them scared and counterpoke. Since her jump arc is much longer and has a faster fall speed, her air approaches become much better, especially with her better air normals. Dash Jump JH is amazing since it's huge and gives high damage combos. Remember that it can easily cross up too. 236k is one of the key tools since it carries momentum really well and crushes mids and lows while being a combo starter. Just remember from before that it is throw punishable if you end up close to them, so try to be careful about the spacing. With the increased range of 214k, it can become a decent neutral skip, especially against characters that focus on long range mids, but it's best to use this with RC if you do it at all since it's still risky. Against non-projectile zoners in JR mode, dash jumping is a very strong option to crush moves like Misfiner and Bridget 5H. And since she has top tier whiff punishing, it's good to try to get into ranges to force these high recovery moves to miss, then dash 2k or Far Slash. And dash up Danzai is always a threat for them to have to worry about. Since she has giant disjoints and incredible speed, handling all types of matchups become much easier. The only thing you have to worry about is characters that can stall you out and run out the timer. If they do that, you'll want to mix in uninstalling then reinstalling to build some JR meter back. For normal mode pressure, her options are a bit limited. It's hard for her to make use of the plus frames due to her slow dash speed, so she can't easily set up throws. Close Slash can stagger into 2k, but it is a 5 frame gap. Instead, the better stagger point is Far Slash since it's only -3 and advances. Adding in a micro dash does make it a little slower, but you might put yourself back into Close Slash range. Once you show you're willing to stagger, start canceling into 2H. If they just FD the whole string, you'll be pretty far back and you can end with just 5H if you want to space yourself out. But if they FD you out, it sets up 236k to be 0 roll on block. And it shows they're willing to commit to blocking, so throwing in 214k can be a way to steal space back. Key grab with 214H is a strong pressure tool that leaves her +2 while advancing and guard crushing. There's a good amount of pushback, so it can't be looped too much. Back to 2H, it true strings by default, but can be slightly delayed for a frame trap. 5H will never true string. Slash first hit 2H into key grab is a way to set up plus frames while staying true string. The benefit of doing just the first hit of 2H is that it keeps you closer, which is especially important against FD. Close range 2K 2D also true strings into key grab. After key grab, since you're +2, 2P leaves only a 2 frame gap, so it's best when you're close, but 2K is the next best, leaving a 4 frame gap for possible trades. If you're feeling greedy, you can Far Slash after key grab, but it will lose to a lot of mash options, so make sure to threaten a 2P or a kick. So in general, try to mix between Far Slash into itself, into 2K, into 2H, and then setting up key grab. Since 236S has such a large cancel window, learn the timing to make it frame trap. It being -15 makes it scary to use, but that also may make them think that you won't do it, making them want to mash. So get the timing down to discourage them from mashing. 236k is another cancel option, and it can frame trap to discourage mashing, and it being -2 can set up some backdash versus 2p RPS. After staggering to build JR meter, go into 5H to space yourself out, and go into install. This gets better if they FD. Just make sure to threaten frame trap 2Hs to keep them scared. In the corner, you can stick to the Far Slash stagger pressure, and if they FD, 236k is a good way to try to reset the situation. As you get a little more advanced, you'll start mixing together different stagger points, making them want to fight back. Key grab's weakness is that it spaces you out, so doing dash carry key grab from Close Slash and 5k is a nice way to loop pressure while staying close. It's nice that it combos if they're trying to mash out of it too. When doing a frame trap 2H, option select by inputting key grab, then immediately install, so you get key grab on block and install for a combo on hit. You can see there's quite a difference compared to just letting the key grab hit. JD into immediate key grab can land cancel the recovery, leaving you up to +9. or do JD into 5k dash carry key grab to fight FD, since JD right into key grab spaces you a lot. Key grab into fast RC install is a difficult input, but when you get it right, it leaves you plus 15 while they're guard crushed. 5H into wild assault is very useful. If you're closer, you can get a close slash, but spaced you'll have to go into far slash or 2k. That is unless you go into an immediate JD to carry the momentum. If you've built a decent amount of meter for JR, this can be a good way to go into install since it leaves you plus 6 on block and easily gives a combo on hit. After 236k, if you commit to blocking and they choose their quick button like a 2p to stop you from mashing, their turn will end quickly, letting you go for 5k dash carry key grab, or you can do a 2p into a quick stagger. Or be a bit greedy and go for a far slash into that frame trap versus stagger pressure. In the corner, frame trap 2H can be converted with 214k and lead to 50% JR meter gain. When you get spaced out, they may try to do a far-reaching mid, which lets you 214k to steal space, but this takes either a read or a patient opponent. This works with 5H2 since they'd expect you to be spaced and may choose a slower option, or they may try a quick poke and misspace it. The more options you represent, the bigger the mental stack, which can force them to make risky decisions. If they start FDing you out, it's okay to be patient and wait for them to IED out of the corner. Same as mid-screen, JD into key grab can be very plus, but FD can mess with spacing, making it difficult to follow up. So doing JD into 5k dash carry key grab is good too. And doing key grab into fast RC install is very powerful in the corner. When you're uninstalling spaced in the corner, look for them trying to get out and reacting with 2S. 236k into fast RC JP or JK is a nice option both for potentially an unexpected overhead or just a way to stay plus on an advancing option. Canceling 2H with 214k can be used as a reset to stay close, so mix this in with 2p staggers, far slash staggers, and dash carry key grab setups. Looping dash carry key grabs into itself is very strong, but will take a lot of practice. If you mess up and just get the dash cancel, you can try to fix it with 2p or 2k into key grab, but it relies on them not reacting in time. In the corner, close slash into JD doesn't reach them. However, close slash up BRC JD, key grab, then close slash dash carry key grab is a quick way to build about 40% JR meter while still being plus and close. Also, close slash TK key grab fast RCJS sets up another dash carry key grab. For JR pressure, close slash staggers become much better since her dash is much faster, but now canceling directly into 2H gives a double hitting low to catch backdash or throw attempts, and you can delay it to frame trap. 2D is also a nice low, but 2H being slower and double hitting is better when pairing with 236k since it's an overhead in JR mode. But doing 2k 2D versus 2k 236k can also be good. That and close slash 2H versus close slash 236k are the main ways to set up her high-low. Convert 2D and 2H with Danzai, and 236k will ground bounce for easy conversions. On block, the typical cancel will be 236s, which leaves you -2. This sets up for mash versus backdash RPS. 2p being your fastest option makes it the best if you choose to mash, but you can do 2k if you think they'll pick a slower option or try to stay defensive. Backdash will lose to bigger pokes like far slash, but 236k can crush options like this. If they block a 236k, you'll be -2 in the same situation, so represent backdash and quick mashes as you need, but start to gauge how they react in these situations. Even 236k into itself can work, but less likely if they do something like 2k. And it gets blown up if you're too close to them. It's much better if you're spaced. And it's risky, but you can go for a throw if you're close and catch them out of a slower button, or potentially tech and mistime throw by them. You can fit in far slash before 2H or 236k too if you want to extend the basic pressure and add in another point to stagger or hit confirm. Going into the follow-up is risky, but it's important to enforce, especially if you have RC to save yourself. Throw is a strong option, but generally I try to avoid it since it eats up a good amount of JR meter since the animation is not so quick. Danzai being +4 is nice, but you'll always be spaced, making it hard to enforce. Since 236S has the follow-up Rekka that can frame trap, you can use it as a stagger point to reset pressure and make them more likely to mash. Just keep in mind that it'll be risky every time you reset pressure like this. A.B.A.'s fuzzy setup is to do a falling JS, then double jump forward into JS H dust. This can be set up easy enough that it'll be a common setup and even be done after forcing them to block after jumping in the corner. Depending on how you time the JH and JD, you'll either be plus enough to true string a close slash or leave a throwable gap for even 2k. When staggering, 2H has some good frame trap options like 236S and 236k, so doing 2 on 4k to steal space and a turn can be good if done occasionally. Unfortunately, the guard point of Danzai isn't enough to bait and punish YRC. Instead, you'll need to do a 2p or jump cancel a close slash or 5k. You can do a falling JP to counter hit and combo, but landing into far slash works too and leads to a good punish. Danzai into PRC leaves them in guard crush and gives more than enough time to run a high-low mix-up with 2H or 236K. It's more meter efficient to fast RC. While I don't see anyone doing this, she can set up IED BRC mix-up and go for a double fuzzy setup. Fast up RC into JH in the corner gives a rising overhead. When running low on JR gauge, doing fast RC into uninstall can leave you at -2, which is a nice safe way to stop yourself from running out. You can try to fit in a JD or a quick mash since they likely won't be expecting this and won't be ready. If you air FD their YRC, you'll fall faster and have enough time for 5H, which is the best punish by far. It gives you a corner-to-corner combo, and you'll see even better 5H combos in the combo section. Remember that you can carry cancel 236S into the key super. This can also work against YRC really well since they'll take away your recovery, giving you an insanely high damaging combo. But if they block it, it gives you almost 50 frames to work with, easily setting up the fuzzy by doing dash jump with JP into JS. While it's pretty specific, you can do 214K fast up RC into JH to fuzzy. I find it nearly impossible to do consistently against somebody waiting on the ground, but if you're able to catch someone blocking in the air, it's much easier. After 236K, doing fast RC with JH keeps them in block stun long enough to go for a rising JS fuzzy. Or do fast RC JK and double jump into a fuzzy for a triple overhead. Just make sure to delay the JH so you have enough time to combo. From close slash dash cancel BRC, you can do 236K or 2H for a high-low, and if they block the high, it forces them to block a fuzzy setup with rising JS that leads into another fuzzy setup. If they FD everything, then you won't be close enough for the second fuzzy. When doing the low, convert with 214K. The final mix-up is backdash forwards fast RC JK. As always, it's a bit tricky to do, but since she can set up so many plus frames, it's good to have. After 236S into the follow-up, there's no way to get a safe jump in normal mode, and it's hard to close the distance. If you are already fairly close, dash into far slash works well. But since it gives you so much JR meter, it's generally best to go into install and dash 2K. It leaves you plus 13, which is enough time for the dash 2K to be meaty. You can be a bit more risky and dash up 236K for an overhead that also catches backdash. Dash 2K can catch backdash, but it's not as reliable and harder to convert off of. For throw-oki, IED JD for same side, or walk into IED JD for a cross-up. You can also do an early one to whiff and sneak in a low, but JD isn't an overhead, so it's more tricky than a real mix-up. In the corner, OTG with 2H into 214K, and close slash meaty to build more JR meter. Also in the corner with key grab, hold up forward into falling JH for a safe jump. Ending with the Rekka makes it easy to meaty after install, but you can OTG 2H into install to get a little more JR meter before installing while still being plus. If you do both hits of 2H, you'll be spaced out and less plus, making it harder to run offense. Ending with 236K leaves you plus enough to dash up and key grab for a meaty. Doing a micro dash into key grab can make it up to plus 5, but it is a bit risky, especially if you do it too early. With 5K into close slash is an easy way to get an extra meaty close slash, but it's hard to follow up if they FD. And of course you can use the threats to go for a throw. But the frame data is the same even after a combo like this, so it should be consistent. After 2K 2D, if you react with 214K, whiff 2S into key grab is a meaty, giving up to plus 5 on block. The major flaw to this and the other meaty key grab setups is that they can backdash and heavily punish you. But this sets up for a dash throw and lets you dash into JD to bait throws. For an alternate setup, OTG with first hit of 2H into 214K and close slash. This auto times it so close slash is very meaty and catches backdash. It can be up to plus 6, but maybe around plus 4 depending on how you time it. And you can always just set up a JD meaty and go into dash carry key grab pressure. From the key grab oki before, the safe jump can also turn into a fuzzy setup. I know it's tempting to always go for the overhead, but make sure to mix in the lows, which can also go right into overheads. After 236K, the JD into key grab setups work well, mixing an instant key grab with dash carry key grab, and even just dash throw can be good. In doing the extra meaty close slash into dash carry key grab is very nice to have, especially with FD being an easy option to push you out normally, and since it beats backdash, it's extra good. Microdash meaty key grab is the best anti-FD option, but is vulnerable to backdash. Since key grab leads you about as plus as 236K, it leads to similar situations. You can do the JD meaty with key grabs, threaten throw, and dash meaty key grab. For the meaty close slash, do microdash with 5P instead. And dash 236K can be meaty and plus 2, which will be a nice knowledge check. When ending with the Rekka, OTG close slash into jump forward with JP into falling JS for a safe jump. This one setup will cover most of the knockdowns you'll get since you'll end practically every combo with Rekka that doesn't wall break. When key grab hits and puts you in JR mode, dash up 2H and 236K both hit meaty for a high low. In the corner for throw, jump into whiff JP, then land 2K for a very meaty low. For the overhead, do air backdash JS into far slash. For a normal safe jump, whiff 5P into JS. When wall breaking with super, dash jump whiff JP into JS for a safe jump. Expanding on the safe jump from before, it sets up the fuzzy perfectly and is the go-to setup. You can skip the overhead and go right for a low to make it faster, but you'll leave yourself vulnerable. It's generally better to do the JS into rising overhead versus JS into a quick low. While the OTG close slash into safe jump setup is great, you may be running low on JR meter and want to uninstall. So instead, dashing up into uninstall leaves more than enough time to meaty with close slash or key grab. If you go into Danzai low on JR meter, uninstalling into whiff 236K sets up for an easy close slash meaty. This works in both mid-screen and corner. An alternate setup for a safe jump is whiff 5K into IED JH. If you microwalk after the 5K, you can get a cross up. If you OTG with close slash into IED JH, it sets up a nice cross up. In the corner, dash jump whiff JP into air backdash JS for a meaty overhead that safe jumps, and do empty land 2D for the low since you're so plus you need the low to be slower. This also works mid-screen, but it'll cross them up and both JS and JH work. Depending on the spacing and the timing of the air dash, you can go same side too. Just remember to throw in the low too. From key grab going into install, same as before, whiff JP into the fuzzy setup. From throw in the corner, whiff JD into 2K or air backdash JS. After the wall break, dash a little extra before the jump, and it gives a cross up with JH. If you break the wall without using super, doing key super as soon as you both recover can be a good neutral skip while keeping positive bonus. If you don't have the meter, then far slash won't reach but is useful for poking, but 5H will reach. Also 236K won't reach, but dash into 236K can be strong. After longer combos ending with dash carry 236K, set up a cross up with IED-JH. When throwing in the corner as you run out of JR meter, OTG close slash dash cancel leaves you +8, perfect for an extra meaty close slash, and you can always go for JD or throw. If you run out of JR during Danzai, OTG with Wild Assault jump cancel into JD for a meaty up to +7. Now that we've covered so many setups and mix-ups, here's an example of how you could apply it to a wall break situation. If done right, this is an entirely true string. The only ways they have to fight this is committing to FD or YRC. For the essentials section, I just want you to focus on getting the basic combo structure down. Practically every hit you get will just go into 236S and the follow-up of 6S for a knockdown. From 2K and 5K, 2D is nice to fit in if it'll reach, but it can be risky, so it can just be better to do 2K or 5K right into 236S. 5K and 2K do combo into key grab too. For pressure, you'll be doing far slash 2H a lot, and this can go into 236K or 236S, but generally you should just do the 236S. When 5H is spaced out, you may do Wild Assault and just convert into the basic combo. For counter hit 5H, cancel into 214K and get a close slash into the basic combo. If you had already input 236S, you still have enough time to far slash and continue the combo. 5K dash carry key grab does combo, so it can be useful when poking in neutral and continuing pressure. When comboing into 5H, Wild Assault into JD leaves you close enough for the close slash B&B. Doing this builds a lot of JR meter. When frame trapping with 2H, OSing between key grab and install lets you get a more optimal combo. Continuing with 5K 6H Danzai or just 5K into JS JH for a ground bounce are a couple of ways to convert. If you're closer, close slash 6H also works. If you don't have a lot of JR meter, you can do 214K and loop 2S 2H to go from 0 to 100 JR meter. For counter hit 5H, you can option select 236S and 214K by inputting them right after each other and will let you get a more optimal combo. If you add in the Wild Assault into the JD route, it'll bring you from 0 to 100 JR meter. 5H into charged Wild Assault lets you get right into install for an easy follow-up. And 5H into 236K lets you combo into 5K dash carry key grab. For more optimal but difficult counter hit 2S combo, you can fit in 2 close slash dash cancels and catch them with 2K. For RC usage, Rekka into fast RC 214K gives OTG 2H first hit into key grab for a lot of JR meter. You can also do 2S into 2H, which is a little more optimal. If you're near the wall, make good use of 236S into Kara Super so you can get extra JR meter and go into install for the wall break. For back to corner counter hit close slash, 6H into charged wild assault pops them up high enough for 214K to side switch. For counter hit 5H into charged wild assault, you get install and have enough gravity to steal the corner even from round start distance. I'll go more in depth about this route as I go over more install combos. For an easy transition after Rekka, do RC into install, then dash up close slash. For a more inconsistent but more meter efficient route, do a fast RC into install and OTG with close slash dash care 236K or 2K Danzai. This will be a very important way to transition to install, especially since Rekka builds you a lot of JR meter to work with. And while there are many dash care cancels in this combo, it's definitely worth learning since they let you go from corner to corner. This transition even works after longer combos like this counter hit 2S starter and no dash cares required. A nice side switch is to combo into up RC, then whiff 236K to go past them and pick up with 2K. When starting in JR mode, same as before, pretty much everything goes into 236S. Make sure you pay attention to how much JR meter you have left so you know whether to go for the safe jump or run up and uninstall for the meaty. If you get a move that pops them up like 2D, you can do Danzai, then run up and combo into 236S. For counter hit far slash and 5H into 236S, when close enough, 2K 2D Rekka will combo. When comboing into Danzai early, dash up 5K into JS, JH, JD when near the corner for a quick wall bounce. To keep it simple, you can go right into key grab. But dash up 5K 6H and splatting with a normal lets you uninstall to build back JR meter, and wall break with key grab for even more while going back into install. From 2H into Danzai, you will have a lot of gravity to work with, letting you do a combo like this, though the routing is more situational due to spacing. It's generally more consistent in the mid-range to go into the air series into a wall bounce. From the fuzzy, ground bounce with JH to set up 5K Danzai. This lets you run up and combo into Rekka. If you're closer to the corner, you can do 5K into the air series for a wall break. From 236K, 5K into Danzai is also the go-to. Start practicing doing dash carry cancels in your combos since they'll be useful for the advanced combos. From counter hit far slash, if you had already cancelled into 236K, you'll be able to do a close slash dash carry Danzai and choose the ender you like, whether it's a knockdown or wall bounce. Same goes for 5H, though it's more likely that you would have committed to 236S. Since they're grounded, you won't be able to do 5K into Danzai for this combo. If you're worried about the spacing, you can go right into 2D. From a raw Danzai counter hit starter, you can dash up close slash and go into something simple for Rekka or wall bounce like before. When it comes to using RC, since Rekka ground bounces, you can easily fast RC into 6H then Danzai. Then determine how you want to continue based on your JR meter. It'll either be better to set up Oki while uninstalling, or to go for a wall splat then uninstall to break with key grab or super. Since throw has a longer animation, it can be more efficient to RC early on and even uninstall to get back some meter then continue on. In some combos, you may end up splatting with 236K, which doesn't give you enough time to uninstall and key grab. That is, unless you hit it in the later active frames, which you'll be able to see during the wall break freeze frame. At this point, your main focus for combos is to try to prioritize JR meter and route your wall splat situations into uninstall, then break with key or super whenever possible. Now for advanced combos, the major points will be corner to corner routes, JR meter efficiency, and damage optimizations. For corner to corner routes, there are a couple of ideas, but have the same general theory behind them. From 2K 2D Danzai, close slash dash carry 236K twice leaves enough gravity to go into a quick air series to splat with JD. From the fuzzy, you'll practically always be at least a little out of the corner, so you can see you only have to do the Danzai and one 236K. And with a 236K starter, it leads into another 236K, then a Danzai. So the structure is based around fitting in one Danzai and two dash carry 236Ks. To round off the main mix-up hits, here's a corner to corner from 2H. Surprisingly, close slash is a harder starter to corner from. This route needs you to know that the close slash will hit so you can jump cancel it, so it'll be useful for punishes. This combo structure is a little different in that it uses 214K in place of one 236K and needs 2S to push them up higher. Since /2s pops them up so much you can do routing like this, but there really isn't any need for it, just thought it was cool. Even from a counter hit 2p, you can get a // to reach the other corner. From back to corner counter hit // it is possible to pop them up high enough to dash under, but it's really difficult to get the spacing to make her turn around for the 5k. Being on defense like this and having enough JR meter to do a combo like this is unlikely, but still worth showing off. Since 2H pops up, converting // with it will pop them up enough to convert after 2 and 4k. Getting counter hit 2H and 236k near the corner will lead to difficult but very high damage combos. From 2H dash jump JS, JD, then 2S, 2H, 2 and 4k to pull them out of the corner, then steal it back. Here's the same route working from 236k. Make sure to end with 5k 6H or 5k 6p to wall splat with enough time to uninstall. If you have extra meter, you can do key grab fast RC 6H to resplat them with enough time to install again for a higher damage super. This route also works from a counter hit // starter, making staggers even stronger. For counter hit 5H, since you should be OSing 236S and 2 and 4k, you'll be able to set up the wall bounce combo even from round start distance. And if you're running low on JR meter, do 5k dash carry key grab to wall splat instead. When baiting YRC, jumping and FDing lets you punish with 5H, which can also lead to a simple combo like this doing a ton of damage. One of the main reasons to do the wall bounce combo is that it builds more meter, potentially letting you wall break with super where you couldn't before. The other main reason to do this is that by the time you make it to the corner, it's likely there's already been damage done to the wall, and optimizing around this lets you do better routing. Like when baiting YRC in the corner, you may be able to get away with a short string into wall bounce before the wall breaks. The thing that makes it difficult is getting the height right, since if they're not high enough, 2 and 4k won't go under them. Mess around with the delays between JS and JD, and also 2S and 2H after the bounce. And if you have enough meter to RC, you can get this from a mid-screen // by using fast RC 2 and 4k, and this ender of using key grab to uninstall works at higher gravity. If that wasn't already enough, you can replace the second side switch with a reverse hitting key super. Using // and 2S to hit from behind both work, it's just up to preference. Just make sure to do 6H after the super so you combo them into the wall splat. Since this works from 2H, blocking a single // mid-screen into a wrong guess leads to a ton of damage, especially if you have extra meter. And this becomes extra strong after super wall break, since a successful safe jump into combo builds you 2 bars to meter dump and reset the situation if it doesn't outright kill. The thing is you don't need to make it to the corner for this to work. As long as you can get them high enough to dash under and 2S or // this'll work. And you'll likely still have wall help to work with after to continue the combo with. Even when you're far from the corner, // 236k will still leave gravity to work with. If you don't make it under them, you'll still be able to dash up in 5k too, it just may lead to less optimal combos. And here you can see just how much damage this can lead to even from a normal hit 2H that didn't reach the wall. If you ever feel like you're not going to be able to finish the combo by either fear of dropping it or fear of running out of JR meter, remember that you can always do a Rekka care cancelled into super, since it won't take you out of install during a string. When it comes to uninstall mid-combo, fast RCing into it after Rekka can leave enough time for 2S, 2H to set up another knockdown with more JR meter. You can expand this a little bit by doing Wild Assault if you aren't quite close enough to reach the corner but want to. Fast RC uninstalling after downside in the corner is also useful, either dash up // or just 6H after uninstalling to continue. When running low near the wall, key grab into fast RC 2H key grab again is a nice way to save yourself from running out. Finally, you can Wild Assault during a string where you run out of meter, and if they get hit, you can do the Wild Assault combo from before to build a lot of JR meter back. Now that you've seen all the optimizations, the hard part is determining when and where you can use each. Resource management will be the hardest part, especially since it's not only up to you how you manage it, but how they prevent you from using it how you'd like to. Since they have access to burst, YRC, and just the ability to make you block as your timer counts down, it can be rough. However, her ability to snowball rounds is extremely high, and all it takes is one hit for you to potentially be put into a winning situation. You won't need everything from these guides, but I hope I was able to help you improve and enjoy the character more. Thank you for watching.